Jupiter entered Cancer just about a week ago and will be here for the next year. The last time that Jupiter was in Cancer was between June of 2013 to July of 2014. So it's good when we have these transits that are longer to be able to, in retrospect, look back and consider what was going on in that time of our lives. Though I will say that this particular transit, the last time that Jupiter was in Cancer, we also had Pluto in the sign of Capricorn making an opposition to Jupiter, which definitely flavored that transit a lot. And probably this time around it will feel a lot different because we don't have that generative force asking us to shed and transform, while Jupiter, of course, is always going to be able to bring some sense of upliftment and optimism, even in the most difficult situations. This is essentially just saying this time we don't have to contend with that force of Pluto from Capricorn making that opposition. So we do right now have Jupiter making a square to Saturn, but this is just the beginning of the transit, and it's not going to be anything that we necessarily feel for this entire year. It's just sort of this first week or two of Jupiter moving into Cancer that we get this sort of sensation of being squeezed, right? It's that way that Jupiter is expanding, always wanting to become bigger, while Saturn is the force that contracts things. So when the two of them come together, it can be this kind of like pressure point and the feeling of like wanting to have that higher vision and feeling like the reality of things is sort of squashing it down. So if that's what you're experiencing at this moment and you're feeling like, I don't think that this is actually a positive transit, or you're looking around you and you're just like, I'm not seeing how this is beneficial, like so many astrologers are saying, I will just say the beginning of this transit is a little bit of a bumpy ride. So with that being said, more towards July and August, we will get to the more sense of how this is being felt in a more benefic way, perhaps, for you. But at the same time, Jupiter is not a planet that is, always going to bring all of the good things, because if it is the principle of expansion, that means that any area or any planets that we have in Cancer that are experiencing a more difficult time, or that we have a difficult time expressing. This is Cancer, the sign of emotions, right? Of our ability to emotionally regulate, of family, of home, of what makes us feel secure and nurturance in our lives. So if we struggle with these things, Jupiter moving through this sign, it has a way of making those issues bigger so that it can clear the way for more blessings to come, right? For us to step into a higher vision around those things in our life so that we can make it more beneficial for us in the long term. So there is that sort of like dual way that Jupiter can move in our lives. But one thing I've been really considering and thinking about with this Jupiter transit is just how beautiful it is, because this is Cancer energy, right? This is the heart and the way that we can feel spaciousness in our heart, which is through emotional regulation, right? Through maturation around our emotions, learning that emotional intelligence and how to regulate ourselves so that we can have safer interactions with people in our lives, in our community, in our intimate connections, really mostly like family. And so if we think about Jupiter coming to this place and bringing that sense of upliftment, right? And bringing that sense of elevation when it comes to having the spaciousness and having more safety in our intimate relationships, in our family dynamics, it allows for the greater vision, which is essentially what Jupiter wants to do. Jupiter is the like on the mountaintop view, right? It is us being able to see a grander, wider perspective of our own life and of how we want to be the one to nourish others in our life with that Cancer energy. And at this time as well in the collective, like how do we bring our own unique caretaking, our own love, right? What's pouring from out of our own hearts that we want to bring to others in our lives? And I just feel this sense of like Jupiter moving through Cancer is trying to offer us this opportunity of that feeling of spaciousness, which creates the safety that we need to be able to embrace others and to embrace our own self more deeply in all of the fluctuations, right, of our emotional world, of our emotional life. And because this is Cancer energy, it also has a lot to do with our intuition and our ability to access our intuitive senses, which I feel Jupiter moving into the sign of Cancer is going to be able to offer us a lot of support with, because it is providing that sense of upliftment, right? So that sense of emotional regulation. Hopefully, we might have to go through some turmoil first. This is also Cancer, which is ruled by that moon and the phases of the moon, which are continually changing. That continuous changeability of the moon is definitely present with Cancer and in terms of our emotions. But ultimately what it is trying to do is offer us that higher view. Jupiter is always looking from the mountaintop. So if we think about this transit in terms of, this is Jupiter wanting to give us the space, like open the space in the emotional world, in our intuitive senses, to be able to see things from a higher perspective, to be able to see our lives from new, higher views that don't necessarily have so much to do with the details of what we're trying to get through day-to-day life, that make us feel like we don't know where we're headed, or it just feels like I have to go step by step. I can't see the bigger vision. But what this is allowing is, yes, we can see the bigger vision so long as we are coming to places of emotional presence with the self. And the more that we are able to do that and to nurture and caretake our own emotional bodies at this time, and our physical bodies too, the more that we will be able to access that vision. In the beginning of this transit, like I mentioned, we have this Saturn squaring Jupiter in Cancer. So there is that sense of contraction happening. And these two work in tandem together, right? The cycles of Jupiter with Saturn are very important and significant, because Jupiter being that energy and that principle of expansion, with Saturn, we need also the contraction, right? We need that to create the balance and for things to be continually, when things get too big, we do need to like tamp it down, or else it just goes out of control. So Saturn is kind of like the regulator, right? Allowing us to make sure that whatever it is that we are expanding with is going to ultimately serve us in the end. So the two of these right now are making that square. So we might be feeling like we're in a pinch somehow, or just like really feeling the pressure and the contraction in the world in general. Obviously right now there's a lot of tensions, a lot of violence, a lot of suppression, right? A lot of things going on that are pointing to this tense aspect happening, along with the Mars squaring Uranus. But one thing I want to mention about this is that it's important for us to find a way through this transit, is what I'm really, hoping for, that when we, even in these moments where we're feeling so pulled and so part of this polarization that's going on, and that has always gone on, will always go on. I just wrote about this on my Instagram, of just like how it's always, we always have this because of the law of rhythm, right? The Hermetic law of rhythm, which is saying that there's always the pendulum swing, right? And so there's always going to be a reaction. We live in a world where cause and effect is a thing. We cannot expect our actions, the actions of our government, to not face some kind of equal reaction of the same degree, right, in response to it. That's just how the spiritual law works. And so when, as us, right, like as beings trying to have a spiritual life, right, to live from the heart space, like how do we actually face these things without feeling just out of control? And I feel like Jupiter moving through Cancer is really trying to point us to a way out through emotional stability, right? Through finding paths to nurturance of self, and so that we reach levels of accessing spaciousness between the extremes, right? So if we're able to actually, in those moments where we're feeling urgency, which is like probably necessary, right? Like if we're feeling a sense of needing to respond, right? There's a way then, like even in those moments, even if it is necessary for us to respond in an urgent way, that we can still actually access a sense of spaciousness within to tap in with what is my right action in this moment. Like, how is my response actually coming from my true sense of integrity, right? From my higher vision that Jupiter has been trying to offer me and to give to me through its transit in Cancer. And this is really significant and beautiful, I feel like, for this transit that we're having for the next year, as Jupiter being this kind of like guide, holding our hand and allowing us to have our emotional reactivity in a way that is giving us the ability actually to step more into that spaciousness, like I was saying. Like, instead of having it be something that we are tamping down and repressing, we're giving ourselves the opportunity to have the emotions come forward, so it creates more safety, right? Which it can be like, there might be a necessity for us to create space in our own personal life where we're able to tap in with those emotions in a safe way, right? Where we feel like we can just express whatever, or have, whether through a therapist or someone who we trust, right? And we're able to like share these things with them versus necessarily just exploding, right? Although that is very possible, I will say, because Jupiter, it can, if something's already an issue, it can make it bigger, right? It can magnify that so that it's very clear to us, okay, how do I actually handle this, right? Because if it's one thing giving you that magnified view, but it's also perhaps allowing you to step outside of that a little bit and give you this idea of what's actually the ultimate goal here. Like, what is my greater vision for my life when it comes to nurturance of self, and how I want to show up and care for other people in my life in a way that is sustaining, right, to my own well-being. And so with this transit, I think that it's giving us this opportunity to learn really clearly, like, okay, in these moments of growing intensity, right, and growing polarization in the world around me, and me wanting to be someone who's responding from the heart, how do I do that without just exploding, or without feeling defeated all of the time, and without losing hope, right? And like, Jupiter is so much about our hope and our faith. And so a lot of this is just turning back into the self and the self-nurturance, and understanding how we can build emotional resilience within ourselves so that nothing is pulling us, right? Like, we don't get pushed by those forces that are coming at us. We might still decide to respond, but it's not because somebody is pushing our hand, right? Like, it's not because we're being forced to. It's because we know that this is what is right for us to do in the moment. It's the way that is aligned with our higher vision that Jupiter has been showing us. So I feel this great sense with this transit over the next year that it's going to be offering us this opportunity to just become much more comfortable with allowing it to overflow, right? Like, allowing the emotions to come out, which can be, depending on where you are with your journey with your emotional body, can be coming up in various different ways. But I would just say, just like, so long as you're creating the safe containers for that, or allowing other people to be a safe container for you as well in your life, who you have an intimate connection with, that's that Cancer energy, right? The feeling of the nurturance that we have with our most intimate people in life. And so whatever is home to you, feels safe to you, like, that is being focused upon, so that you can grow and see a more higher vision that is guiding your life, and feel more connected to it. So in these moments when it's like needing to face the urgencies, right, that do come up, because there's not, like, it is real, like this the need, right, to respond sometimes in a quicker fashion. I'm not trying to say that like we need to always be in stillness. That's not it. But it's more like, we don't have to be forced into our reactions. And when we actually reach this place of more emotional maturation and have a lot more safety when it comes to our emotions and our emotional world, that is what is allowing us to continually be able to access our higher vision, and be able to access our own intuition, which only comes when we are in a place of spaciousness. We can't actually hear our intuition if we're not able to access that place of stillness and that place of spaciousness where the heart is. You know, it's like, that's where we can feel gratitude in the heart space. That's where we are in our own ability to access our intuition. So it's all very much bringing us back to the blessing that truly is our ability to breathe in, take the deep breath, right? Feel the spaciousness around us so that we can, we're not like continually to contract and contract and contract in on ourselves to where we feel smaller or we feel like fight or flight, right? Where we're feeling that necessity to break out and just like, there's no space for the emotions, right? So now I feel completely trapped. This is like the opportunity with Jupiter in Cancer to create a lot of room for us to heal emotionally, for us to deeply be present with ourselves and with other people through the difficult emotions that are arising at this time, which is gonna in turn allow us to move through life. And this is also speaking to all of the energy in Aries right now, because it is another layer of this where this is all cardinal energy, new beginnings energy. And it's allowing us this combination to step into what feels most true, most right, most empowered or fired up within us, right? That we want to move towards. And it does require us to be facing the whatever emotional material is coming to the surface at the same time. So I think it's actually really beautiful that we have Jupiter moving through Cancer as all of these new starts are happening in Aries as well, because it's just giving that fortification of the emotional body and giving us the opportunity to really learn how to do that within our own selves. And it is a skill that I think all of us desperately need and are going to need to like really nurture throughout the next year of all of these massive shifts, right? And that we're already seeing the chaos around us. And I think it's just going to keep getting more and more heightened. So it's like, how do we, as from like a spiritual perspective, from a heart-centered perspective, how do we learn to deal with the extremes and the polarities that we see around us without being swept from side to side, and being able to like hold our sense of peace and hold our sense of safety, internal safety. And Jupiter here is really wanting us to learn how to do that and to grow here, because wherever Jupiter is in the chart is where it is saying it's time to grow in this space. So I'm going to leave it there. Sending many blessings through this Jupiter transit and everything happening in the world. I hope everyone is staying safe right now, and that you are offering opportunities for yourselves and others to feel a sense of nurturance and care in whatever way you're able to offer that to yourself or to others at this time. Sending a lot of extra protection to anyone standing up at this moment, and in whatever way is feeling, most true to the heart and soul and calling you forward. So with that, I'll see y'all in another video. Okay, much love. Bye.